I never hated anyone as much as I hated my wife's sister that day. It started with a careless comment thrown across the kitchen while I washed dishes. "If you disappeared tomorrow," she said, leaning against the counter with that smug smile, "no one would even notice." I froze. My hands slipped in the suds. My mind raced. I wanted to shout, to throw something, to make her understand the venom in her words. But I didn't. I just stared. "You don't know what you're talking about," I said finally, my voice tighter than I expected. She shrugged, perfectly indifferent. "I do. Everyone here thinks you're replaceable." It was true. At family gatherings, my contributions were invisible. My wife barely looked at me anymore, lost in the glow of her sister's praise and laughter. I was tolerated, not loved. My presence was convenient, not valued. And yet, hearing it aloud, so blunt and sharp, felt like a blade twisting in my chest. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words haunted me, echoing louder than any argument or fight we'd ever had. I thought about my wife, her quiet complicity, the way she never defended me, not once. My anger simmered into something else. Clarity. I decided then that if they saw me as invisible, I would become unmissable. But not in the way they expected. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. I would build a life so undeniable, so tangible, that they'd have no choice but to acknowledge me. Step 1. Distance. I stopped attending their weekly dinners. I stopped picking up the slack on chores that weren't mine. I stopped bending over backward to make them comfortable. My absence was quiet at first, almost polite, but noticeable. I started spending time on myself, on the career I had let stagnate, the hobbies I abandoned, the friendships I ignored to keep the peace. Step 2. Leverage. I documented everything I did. Work successes, volunteer hours, minor achievements. I recorded proof of my competence and worth. I quietly rebuilt my life, posting updates on social media, networking with colleagues, earning praise I had been denied in my own home. Step 3. The reveal. 6 months later, the family gathered for a holiday dinner. I arrived last, calm, confident, carrying a portfolio of my accomplishments, promotions, awards, accolades. My wife and her sister noticed immediately. There was a pause, a rare moment where silence replaced chatter. I spoke softly, deliberately. "I know some people here think I'm invisible, that my presence isn't important. I've spent months letting that observation guide me. And now?" I opened the portfolio, letting them see what I had built on my own. "I am undeniable." Gasps filled the room. My wife's sister's face went pale. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. My wife looked at me, stunned, as if realizing for the first time the depth of what she had ignored for years. "I have a career that thrives without anyone else's approval," I continued. "I have friends who respect me, and a life that no one can belittle. You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought it didn't matter, but it does. And it always did." The room was silent. Not a word. Not an interruption. For the first time, I had the stage, and they had none. Later that night, my wife tried to apologize. "I didn't mean," she began. "I know," I said. "But you did. And sometimes meaning isn't enough. What matters is the life we choose to live." Her sister didn't speak. She avoided my gaze entirely, and I realized that her words, meant to wound me, had become the fuel for my rise. Months later, I moved into a new apartment, one she would never see, surrounded by friends who celebrated me. I excelled in my career. I traveled. I laughed again. My absence from their gatherings became a reminder of what they lost. Not just a husband, but a man they never valued. Sometimes revenge isn't confrontation. Sometimes it isn't anger. Sometimes it's quiet, deliberate, undeniable transformation. And every time I think of her words, I smile. "If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice." I had disappeared, from their life, from their control, and yet I was seen more clearly than I had ever been. I didn't need them to notice. I needed me to notice. And that, I did. I was finally free.